So we're talking about rebranding the imaging of the industry, or rebranding road haulage. So I thought I could say, I could write 8 or 10,000 words and read them out, but I thought as a picture's worth 1,000 words, I'd show some pictures instead. To quote Robert Burns, my favourite poet, God gave us the gift to see ourselves as others see us. And this is as, sadly, the industry is perceived. So that's the Bath tipper crash. That's the Glasgow bin lorry. This is an operator, it wasn't his fault at all, bicycled under his lorry, basically. But just in case you think, that's in London, obviously, but just in case you think the cyclist issue only applies to people operating in London, this sort of thing is very easily found on the web, but it's also referred to very much by the cycle lobby and is a real issue right around the country. That cyclist with his camera on his helmet isn't being given a lot of room by the lorry, and it doesn't take many examples of that for our industry, which does everything it does in public, to slide down a notch or two more, because that's pretty indefensible in my view. A few more pictures, long queues of lorries. This is actually taken up during Operation Stack. These are almost all foreign vehicles, and of course we may see a change of foreign vehicles on the roads in the future after Brexit. But nonetheless, that's Shap on a windy day, and not even particularly high-sided vehicles if you look closely. This is Helen Whately, who's MP for Mid-Kent, and got a debate in Parliament on what she calls fly parking. Not fly tipping, but the polemical link is very clear. We don't like lorries. Now, it's actually completely wrong, and fortunately not many people, but Helen Whately now uses the term. And that's another lorry parking issue, only that's the Midlands. Enough is enough. So that's the way we are perceived. And some of it we can do something about, some of it we can't. But let's try and do what we can about what we can. In terms of lorry parking, the RHA has been campaigning very, very strongly. We got a parliamentary question asked just over 2 years ago about what the Department for Transport was going to do about the provision of driver facilities on the strategic road network. And the then Roads Minister, Claire Perry, said basically it's down to the private sector. Well, we went to the Transport Secretary at the time, Patrick McLaughlin, and we said that's not acceptable to us, and we don't believe it's sustainable. And we were very pleased that middle of last year we saw detected a change, and John Hayes is now working very hard to get the Department for Transport to drive up standards. So that's positive. But we've a lot that we could do, and if we're going to have more places to park in the network and more truck stops, we have to ask ourselves, is it really reasonable for lorries to be parking outside people's houses on country lanes and so on, leaving unpleasant little parcels? And that's an issue that the industry has to ask itself and come up with an answer. We've said to the government, if you provide facilities which are appropriate, including security, we will encourage the industry to do it. And I suspect you'll get more and more enforcement requiring you to use facilities. So where are we now? We've got in London real pressure on trucks, direct vision standards and air quality standards. We've got a very large and diverse industry which is not recognised. Air quality we covered before. There is a transformation in lorries which is underway now. So can't emphasise enough, the Euro 6 lorries are performing to standard in a way that cars and vans as yet do not. And we have to get that message over not only to central government, but to local government. Cars will start to do it, we hope, in 2018 and vans in 2019, if you're interested. But trucks have been there since 2014. They do what it says on the tin. The last session we covered operator licensing. The perception of the industry is pretty awful when you get the traffic commissioners talking about the long tail of the industry, when you get judges in manslaughter trials saying this operator was a shambles from a start to finish, and when you get an industry which is misunderstood. The professional haulage section is actually better than the restricted license section and than the foreign vehicles. But we have to be realistic within the professional haulage section. Not everybody is as they should be either. I don't know if there are many van operators here today, but quite an interesting point that we've been making. There are about 35 million freight vehicles in the country, and there are about 36 and point something vehicles on the road. It's virtually everybody's car is a freight vehicle if you think about it. You go to the shops, and that is going to be a really interesting issue the more we see online shopping and home delivery, because the car freight vehicle is being replaced by the van freight vehicle. The regulators are getting all excited about the number of vans we have on the road and not looking very closely at the number of cars that are not going on the road so much. And these two graphs, this will be appearing in our air quality document going out onto the website this afternoon. And that's from the DEFRA air quality paper, as I said earlier, showing the extent to which cars have a NOx emission output which is way in excess of what it should be, whereas trucks are not at Euro 6. So we've covered a lot of these issues, but then we can look at the conditions in our industry. And we have to ask ourselves, if we're wanting to recruit into the transport sector and logistics sector, are we doing enough ourselves to ensure that the conditions are right? We are working with government in terms of places to park, but is there more we can do? The government's very keen on diversity, and you've only got to look around this conference or anywhere else where transport people gather. There isn't a huge amount of diversity in terms of what the government talks about. So in terms of recruitment, we've got a lot of problems. We've got solutions also. And Colin Snape, who's just joined me, Deputy Policy Director, will be here at 1:30 talking about a massive opportunity for funded training and to improve the recruitment and training process. 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, the RHA launched National Lorry Week with the slogan, "Love the Lorry." And what we're wanting to do is challenge our members to think about how they think about the industry and how they project themselves, their business and the industry to their customers, the community, and to people they want to recruit from. And John Hayes, who's our current Transport Minister, I'm very supportive, and I've referred to him in relation to lorry parking, is in a constituency where he has hauliers who have done just that. So Freshlink is one of his constituency companies. Here he is at a Freshlink open day, and here he is on Westminster Bridge, or some of his constituents from Freshlink and a charity that they support that promotes that part of Lincolnshire. The point is, John Hayes, who was very supportive of the RHA's campaign and helped to bring it to a successful conclusion, to raise the speed limit from 40 to 50 in England and Wales. One of the reasons, or the reason he knows about road haulage and supports it, is he understands it because constituents in the industry have taken the trouble to tell him about it. And we believe that, small firms, large firms, doesn't matter. You can assist your local community and your local MP to understand what our industry does, why it's important, and why we need a good regulatory environment to work in, with good roads as our main place of work. In terms of how we see ourselves and what we can do, here you have, this is a Fowler Welsh lorry, and I think that's Cambridge operator's name's just gone. Sorry. Clearly going out to the next generation, or the next generation but one. And so, please, if anybody's got any questions or comments, please let me know, because we are trying to be interactive. These lorries are both, by the way, ultra-low emission vehicles. Who says so? Transport for London says so. They're absolutely standard Euro 6 trucks, but they're ultra-low emission. So when people say we have to solve the airport, what's the urgency on solving the problem? What is the problem generated by ultra-low emission vehicles? But we've got a huge diversity. It doesn't matter what size of company you are, you can have a very clear message, very well presented. We are an essential and undervalued industry. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And what I'm keen to challenge the industry, and the RHA will be challenging again in National Lorry Week this September. What can you do to support that message? If you would like, the message we are giving out is that this is a modern IT-led service industry working to increasingly tight and demanding standards from customers on a very challenging road network, which is only going to get worse in the next few years. We have a week in September, but we also have the potential for a year-long engagement. So I'd like to ask, finally, not only those sitting here, but those outside, if you could come a little bit closer, we count. Want to do a little just a brief survey, if we could. Partly because we're interested in what you think, and partly because we want you to consider the options. So very briefly, do you agree that the industry has problems that result from its image? Yes? No? One no that I can see. Rest yes. Should the industry do more to promote itself to the government and to the public? Yes? No? The one no seems to have disappeared. But this is the real crucial question. Would you, or someone you know, be good at, that is, have the enthusiasm, the enjoyment, the talent, and get the satisfaction, good at representing the industry? Yes? No? And a few don't knows. We have more yeses than noes. We have a few don't knows, but we have enough yeses that if we can get that message across the industry, that we can really transform the way this industry is perceived and understood. And we can go into schools and go to MPs and get them to understand what it is that these big vehicles are that they see every day of the week and every week of the year. Thanks very much.